Hi, and welcome to another edition of Seniors Today. I'm your host, Tom Bartee, and our guest today is Sarah Nichols, who is the Executive Director of SAGE, which stands for Solano Advocates for a Green Environment. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, Tom.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, I'm glad you're here. I know you've got a very cool story to share with our audience, and maybe you can get right into the meat of it, giving us a little background about SAGE and what that's all about.
Okay, well, SAGE is a nonprofit, and our goal is to incorporate art and science and history and teach people the appreciation for the urban forest that they live in. And the urban forest is the colony of trees that live in Vallejo. And what's very interesting about Vallejo is that originally there were no trees growing in this part of California. And so if you look at Vallejo now, it's filled with trees, and about 90% of them were planted by someone. So our urban forest is created from trees from around the world and planted by basically citizens. And we're now to a point where we need to revitalize our urban forest and make environments for the trees to be able to take root and flourish, because they've proved that neighborhoods that have street trees have a 25% energy savings, they have less crime, they have higher property values, and I think that we can say that there's not a single person in Vallejo that doesn't look for a shady place to park their car on a hot day. So one of the things that our big project now, we've done a number of projects with school kids where we've, with the elementary schools, we've planted trees on Walnut Avenue on Mare Island and in City Park and at the Forest Service and Toro University. And what's very interesting about our history is that since there were no trees here before, part of Mare Island's history was they would send people from the East Coast to run the shipyard, and they all came from places with trees. So they would arrange for trees to be shipped from the East Coast around to Vallejo. And so, and then Commandant Alden, when he began building Dry Dock 1, which is, everyone should go see this. This is considered one of the most important industrial stone buildings in the United States. Well, when he started building Dry Dock 1, he asked for ship captains to please bring trees from around the world to his dry dock. And if you had a tree on your boat, you'd get really special treatment. So there's many trees on Mare Island that are some of the first in California.
Well, they had, one time, didn't they have labels on some of those trees?
They do have labels on a lot of the trees. Are still there. The thing about, in the 60s, California was mad for planting trees, and Vallejo was no exception. And the Beautification Advisory Commission at that time planted thousands of trees in Vallejo. Now, they didn't quite understand right tree, right place at that time. So they made a few mistakes, like everyone planted liquid...
What not to plant?
Well, yeah, so they planted liquid amber trees, or sweet gums, because this was a tree where the leaves would turn beautiful colors in the fall without a cold snap. So, unfortunately, this is also a tree that grows in very wet environments in the southeast of the United States, so it has very shallow roots and just is ruining sidewalks all over this town. So, unfortunately, because of the best of intentions, in the hindsight now, we have a lot of people that are very upset with the city trees that we have because they're lifting up the sidewalks. So now we're all about right tree, right place. There's trees that have polite roots and don't damage your sewage system and don't lift sidewalks. And
what are some of those trees?
Well, there's maples are very polite. Their roots all go down. Chinese pistache, the smaller trees like crepe myrtles, let's see, I can tell you trees not to plant, like magnolias and liquid ambers, they all came from the south, which had a high water table, so that the roots tended to live on the surface, and they laugh at sidewalks and so they're problematical. So anyway, so what the average life of a street tree is about 60 years. And so we are, our urban forest is, now this is a technical term, is reaching its senility, which means that the trees are past their prime and are now going to need to be removed because as they get older, they become hazardous.
They're having an arbor moment.
They are having an arbor moment. Yes, they are.
Okay.
So anyway, so we're about educating people about how great trees are for their neighborhoods and how wonderful it is to live in a beautiful tree-lined street. So one of our projects is in the St. Vincent's Hill district, which is a historic district in the downtown area that's federally recognized, and it's between Tennessee to the north and and the alley just south of Carolina Street to the waterfront to just a half a block away from Sonoma Boulevard. That's the St. Vincent's Hill district, and this was buildings that were built up until the end of the First World War. It's one of our charming historic districts. And one of the during the period of the 60s in Vallejo, the city of Vallejo was able to qualify for massive urban redevelopment. And so the city fathers at that time, Vallejo always being forward-leaning and progressive.
Fathers and mothers.
Yes, fathers and mothers at that time, the parents, with the best of intentions, proceeded to tear down 600 19th century buildings in the downtown, and they relocated 500 families. That would be about 2,000 people. They completely leveled the York Street Hill and moved. I think they say like 3 million cubic yards of fill was pushed to create the promenade downtown. All the streets like Virginia, Capitol, Florida, they used to all end at the waterfront. So everything that's from Mare Island Way west is pretty much all fill from the York Street Hill, which was leveled. And the York Street Hill was where they originally built the first Capitol building, because it was strategic, because from the top of that hill you could see San Francisco. So that was a good sized hill, and now it's leveled. And then they replaced this with redevelopment. They replaced these homes and families with 4 housing projects. So that completely changed things. And their plan was they're going to have an elevated freeway along the waterfront, and the access to the downtown from Highway 37 was going to be Sacramento Street. So the Carnegie Library had to go because they wanted to widen the streets so that they could have a 4-way speedway from the downtown to Highway 37. So what this did is completely destroy the charm and the integrity of the St. Vincent's Hill neighborhood, because suddenly you have a residential street with, beautiful residential street with planting strips right next to, the St. Vincent's Hill. The church was a beautiful landmark, and they widened the streets to the 80-foot right-of-way. And the reason we have such a wide right-of-way is that when General Vallejo and his son-in-law developed Vallejo, they wanted the wide boulevards of Europe. They had this grand plan that this was going to be a elegant cosmopolitan.
That was Frisbee, right?
Frisbee, yeah, Frisbee and Vallejo. Mm-hmm. This was Vallejo's vision, General Vallejo's vision. And so they had this. So all of the streets in the historic districts downtown have an 80-foot right-of-way. So if you live there, half of your front yard is actually city property. And so if you look at Sacramento Street, they widened it to the full 80-foot width, as they did on Georgia Street. And they widened, because the whole theory then was not about charm and quaintness, it was about making the roads as wide as possible so the cars could get there as easily as possible. So Georgia Street was widened to the full width, Main Street was widened for the full width, Sacramento Street. And so in doing this, everyone lost their front yards. So we have been working for 5 years to develop a project that's called Mean Streets to Green Streets. And what we're going to do is we got a community block grant, federal community block grant, and these are grants that your neighborhood is only can qualify for them if they reach a certain recognizable level of blight by the federal government. So I have friends who live in Vallejo, and they're like, well, I want to get a CDBG grant. And I'm like, well, actually, you may not, because it means it's indicative that your neighborhood is blighted.
Yeah.
And so what we're going to do is we're going to, and it's been really great working with the city of Vallejo. They've been very collaborative and positive with working with us. It's been a 5-year plan, 5-year process to work out a lot of the kinks and get better at communicating with each other. It all takes practice. So what we want to do, we have 3 options. St. Vincent's Hill District will be voting upon what they want to do, and the 3 choices we have is, the first is give everyone back their front yard, and then have a sidewalk, and to make it pedestrian friendly, and then a planting strip with street trees. That's one plan. The other plan is to leave the sidewalks where they are, which is not an advantage to the homeowners because they won't have a buffer between the public access of the sidewalk and their house. But then they have a very wide planting strip, so we could plant some really grand trees there. And the other advantage of having trees and planting strips is that, as I was saying earlier, when you park your car in front of your house, because there's no driveways in this neighborhood was developed when there was a horse and buggy town, the parked cars will be shaded. And then the third option, which the citizens of St. Vincent's Hill have, many of them want, is to leave things as they are and put a median strip down the middle. And so that'll be a line of trees down the middle. The advantage to that is that some people would like this. They think a median strip would be beautiful. And we wouldn't have to move the sidewalks and so on and so forth. The disadvantage is that the sidewalks remain, 4 feet away from someone's front door, and you don't get the cars don't get to get shut.
But the other thing is that you'll have traffic calming measures.
That's right.
That will, you call it a speedway, and sometimes Sacramento Street is a speedway.
Well, when they designed it, it's a 4-lane road plus 2 lanes of parking. And when they designed it, it was so they have highway lights. So one of the things we want is to have pedestrian scaled lighting. We also want to have part of the Mean Streets to Green Streets project is to put a bike boulevard on Marin Street. That's the historic place for the bicycle trail. And what's great about bike boulevards is that everything on wheels has equal right of way. So this will allow for bicycles and wheelchairs and kids on skateboards to have a safe avenue to be able to get across town. This is being used across the country as one of the most economical means to develop bike thoroughfares, because since the whole road is of access, it's not as dangerous as riding in a bike lane. So it's considered one of the most appropriate.
Is that proposed to be Class 1, or is that?
I'm not quite. No, a bike boulevard is. I don't quite know the classes of bike lanes, but it's a more family friendly, because the whole street is a bike lane.
Okay, I know.
And
Yeah.
so we wanted to put. There's already historic lighting on Marin Street, so we want to get that rewired and lit, and then put roundabouts where we can, and we want to put angle parking all the way around the park so that there's city park.
City park.
And then we want to put angle parking up next to the church so that they have more. And basically, there's this new term called a road diet. That's a technical term as well.
Road diet?
Yes, it means making the road thinner. And that's what it's called. And so what's happening now is there's a movement, which is now law in California, which is the Complete Streets Project. And so how this came about is Gavin Newsom from San Francisco went to Europe and came back and went, oh, you wouldn't believe the streets in Europe. There's just, they live on them. They have cafes. It's their life. It isn't just for cars. And so California was, first it was a horse and buggy town, so you had to have wide streets for the horses and elegant cities. And you didn't have any planning because the trees would eat them. And so our streets, especially in the old parts of town, are sidewalk, gutter, street. There's very little area to grow anything. Later, they put in a planting strip so they could have street trees like the Fleming Hill Estates neighborhood. It's a beautiful neighborhood that's filled with sycamore trees planted, shortly after the First World War. And so, that's what we're hoping to do. And the other thing we want to do is, I don't know if people have seen the Butte Street Steps. That was another CDBG grant project. So they have these like little pediments that at the base of the stairs and at the top, and we want to put match those and put those on all the streets that come in.
Street corners.
Yeah, so that will give the historic district a sense of place. So it's exciting.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So the city park is adjacent to a portion of the project.
It's kind of in the heart of it, yes.
And are there any special plans for the edge of City Park that is on Sacramento Street?
Well, that would get angle parking.
Oh, okay. Would there be a tree planting strip there as well, or?
Well, we're in the process of planning it. At this point, where you have angle parking, you don't have, what we could do with angle parking is what they've done in Novato and Dublin and so on and so forth, is that they plant a tree in every third angle slot. And it looks great. I think you should go check it out. Novato's done this, because Novato's another California town designed for cars, so big wide street and then a sidewalk with no all concrete. So what they've done is put in angle parking to bring the street down to a narrower width, which it sounds counterintuitive, but truthfully, traffic apparently flows better with 2 lanes rather than 4.
Because you don't have people switching lanes.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so anyway, they and then they planted shade trees or street trees in every third angle parking spot.
Would you have they recommended any particular kind of tree?
Well, the trees are frosting on the cake. And at this point, there's a long ways to go before that. And there's going to be, the city has a tree list, and we'll probably work with that.
So it won't be liquid ambers or magnolias?
No.
But it could be crepe myrtles or sycamores?
Sycamores actually are the universal street tree.
Elms in the Midwest.
Well, the elms got the Dutch elm disease. But in Vallejo, we have the Chinese elms, and they do very well here. They're beautiful. The sycamores in Vallejo do quasi. They get anthracnose, so they get covered in what looks like powdery mildew. So they're not a real good choice for us here. But there's other choices that thrive.
Now, I might be wrong on this, but